spiritual role that have been passed on from one generation to another. Amplified by the rabbi's explications, the women of the Bible who are gutsy, such as Dinah, are often presented as being naughty. Those who are bold leaders, such as Miriam, often get vilified for taking initiative and speaking out of turn. While the ancient retellings may have enhanced the rabbi's understanding of the biblical stories and may have helped the people of their time to find the stories relevant, they help me primarily in gaining insight into the mindset and values of the rabbis whose retellings have been passed down. My questions and concerns go unanswered. My spirit is infrequently raised. In recent years, as a result of numerous women becoming more deeply learned in the Bible and its traditional commentaries, 2 new literatures by women and about women in the Bible have emerged, and they reflect a range of women's sensibilities. Both are new forms of midrash, and they aim to honor the women in the Bible and connect contemporary women to their stories. The writers of the more conservative variety tend to beacon readers to see the women as spiritual resources. They aim to demonstrate that the matriarchs have a special relationship with God, a spirituality so innate, deep, and profound that they can see, and this is a phrase they often use, many steps into the future and anticipate what is to come. The matriarchs, seen in this light, are supposed to give women hope when there appears to be none, and to help them cope with disappointments, indignities, challenges, and tragedies. Figures such as Rebecca, Tamar, or Ruth use their clairvoyance and then go a step beyond that, taking the law into their own hands. Because their ultimate goals, fulfilling the divine promise, passing along the covenant God made with Abraham, or heralding the Messianic era, are so noble, how could one not admire the way they turn to subterfuge and work beneath and beyond the system? I applaud these new readings, which attribute more agency to the women of the Bible. They become almost like liberation theologians. But I am not especially inspired by them, because the women who emerge tend to be so self-effacing, so graceful in their suffering, and too willing to put the welfare of others before their own. The more radical new midrashim, short stories, poems, or theological essays, are being coined by women of a more liberal bent. They have been surely inspired by theologian Judith Plaskow, who has taught that feminist midrash ought to expose the patriarchal perspective of the ancient midrash and explore the question it leaves open: what would happen, what is happening, as women's power begins to be freed and defined by women. I am moved by the earnest desire of these authors to give the named and unnamed women of the Bible voice, agency, and minds of their own. I applaud their efforts to see the women through the lens of their own lived experiences. Yet I worry that in fashioning the biblical women into the figures the authors wish them to be, the women themselves get lost. I felt there had to be some way for me to connect to the women of these stories. After all, these women are my ancestors, and their sacred stories are my legacy. I couldn't just give up on them because they presented problems and challenges. I was reminded of Kathleen Norris's observation when she was drawn to the strong old women in her congregation. Their well-worn Bibles said to me, "There is more here than you know." For each of the women whose story is told in Sarah Laughed, I have written a new midrash-like story of my own imagining that enters into the biblical story and enriches our understanding of the biblical figure. In this way, we can connect to her story in new ways and consider what insights she has for women today. The chapters are arranged in thematic sections, focusing on topics that link the biblical women to themes that are particularly pressing in our own lives: being wise, living in a woman's body, being a friend, being a parent, healing, and being in the divine presence. Each chapter begins with a brief passage adapted from the Bible in which the woman appears. The translations from the Hebrew are, with one exception, my own, but they have surely been influenced by the excellent translation of the Jewish Publication Society. This is followed by my own retelling of the woman's story. In the 3rd section of each chapter, I explain how each woman's story can illuminate the lives of contemporary women. I suggest what we can learn when we consult with our ancient community of sisters, and how we may be empowered by the experiences and lessons of these ancient and yet still vividly